A really good exercise, guys, that you can do. It's a challenging one, and it's challenging for a lot of my clients, but if you want to gain confidence, then you can try this exercise. And it's an exercise of confession in regards to what you're frightened of. And I'll show you the exercise now, and I'll explain the positive psychology behind it. Now, the first fear that all men have generally is they have a fear to admit that they're afraid. And then they feel embarrassed, they feel ashamed to actually, voice those fears. So I'll show you the exercise now. From when I was younger, I had all these fears, and this is the fears I'm going to share with you that I had, and I'm going to explain how I overcame these fears. This is a list of fears throughout the last sort of 15, 20 years. So I had a fear of job interviews, and I was afraid to go to a job interview because I was scared that I might start stuttering and getting nervous at the interview, and they would all judge me, and I would embarrass myself and not get the job. So I had a fear of that for many years. So, sorry, this hay fever. So what I done was, when I got my mind right and made a decision, a commitment, I just kept going to job interviews until I got less nervous, and eventually I got the job and overcame the fear. Next fear I had for many years was I had a fear of talking to women, and specifically telling the girl that I liked her and asking her out on a date. The first fear I had was of she might think I'm weird, and I might start getting awkward, and she's going to see that, and I'm going to feel really embarrassed and humiliated. Then also the fear that girls wouldn't like me. She's going to say no. She's not going to find me attractive. That's really going to hurt my feelings. So I practiced that. Excuse me. Summer season hay fever's coming. I practiced that and went through that until I, didn't die, survived it, and eventually got a girlfriend, got the yes, and overcame that fear by putting myself through the fear. Then I had a fear of moving out of my parents. I was frightened that I won't be able to cope, mentally, pay bills. Just the whole process overwhelmed me. So I did that in my 20s and eventually overcame that fear. I had a fear of joining a boxing gym, mainly because of the sparring. I didn't want to do the boxing in case I got beaten, got humiliated, got embarrassed. So I went and did that until I overcame the fear. I had a fear of starting YouTube years ago. I had a fear of just going on camera, making videos. I was worried about what people would think, what my family, friends, new people. Basically a fear again of messing up on camera, being nervous, people seeing it, judging, etc. Also, I had a fear of people liking me as well and being successful. That kind of scared me. So I faced that fear, overcame it. Then I had a fear of making money and selling. Sorry, this hay fever. I was just uncomfortable around money. I was afraid that people think I was greedy, or it was inappropriate, rude. Just talking about money unsettled me, made me uncomfortable. I was also afraid of being rejected, never making the sale. And I was also equally afraid of making the sale and then having to deal with the consequences and the responsibilities. I'm just afraid of the dialogue, the conversation. Business meetings intimidated me. Phone calls, people, confrontation, money, life, success, all of it intimidated me. So I faced that fear hundreds of times, went to hundreds of business meetings, in-person meetings, on the phone, Zoom, overcame that fear, and then eventually on stage, selling public talks, selling programs and packages on stage, overcame that fear. Then I had a terrifying childhood fear of traveling to new countries of people. Recently overcame that fear on my own, so travelled to different countries, got on a plane, had a fear of flying, overcame that. Had a fear of doing a boxing match when I was younger in case I got beat, faced that fear, did lose the fight, but I overcame the fear by doing it, faced that fear. Had a fear of, what fears did I have? Running events in person, organising the events, going, talking, public speaking, teaching, overcame that fear, did it hundreds of times. I had a fear of sharing my story with everyone because I was quite embarrassed about things I went through as a kid, the shame, the anxiety, the bullying, etc. Overcame that fear, made hundreds of YouTube videos, and I've shared it to clients in person when they asked me or needed some help, or they've asked me questions about how did I get past certain fears. Overcame that fear. Overcame the fear of wearing a suit. Used to be embarrassed about wearing a suit, didn't feel comfortable dressing up, looking smart, people looking at me. Overcame that fear. I was afraid to go into 5-star hotels, felt intimidated. I grew up from a poor area, so I thought they'd kick me out, shame me, shout at me, embarrass me in front of everyone. I'd fall over, drop plates on the floor. Everyone would think, well, this guy's clumsy. Overcame that fear by going to hundreds of hotels. What other fears? What other fears that I have? Other fears. They're most of them off the top of my head. Anyway, so the idea of this exercise is self-honesty, because in your own mind, the fear will lie to you and say, if you out your fears, if you say them out loud, you're going to be, might die, might be humiliated. Of course, that doesn't happen. Actually, it gives you a lot of confidence, and it's a self-esteem exercise. If you do it long enough, do you know what it does? You stop caring as much about what people think. Now, of course, admitting your fears is one thing that's good for confidence. Of course, at some point you've got to face them, because if you just go around admitting them, it's like therapy, which is fine, but it's not enough. But it is a great start. So it's a two-way step in how you build confidence, and that's how I overcame these things. And that's one of the things I do in my coaching sessions when it's appropriate, when it's the right thing to do. So try it for yourself. It could be any fear. I actually also had a fear of talking about my mental health, my breakdown, my recovery. Did that, overcame that fear of losing weight, did that. So it's the honesty, it gives you power, whereas if you keep it in and you're afraid, it just bullies you. And a lot of people, I also had a fear of dancing, did that, forgot about that. I'm not going to dance right now, but I did it. Frees you up, and it does, and you stop caring what people think. And if you look at all successful people at some point, whether they realize it or not, they all do this. They all confess their fears on podcast shows. They explain how they're afraid, how they overcame them, or the existing fears that they're dealing with right now. Try it. I work on this myself, it helps, all right? If this really helped you, even just listening to my story, let me know in the box below. And of course, once you overcome the fears, you don't really care what people think, because you don't have the fear anymore. You've overcome it, or you've dealt with it, you've succeeded, all right? Fearless.